This is my foiling catamaran that doesn't work. A lot of great comments on the last video about things I can do. My main issue is too much drag. After reading my YouTube comments and measuring up my dad's proper foil, I decided to make a few changes to my one. Intersecting drag is a problem, so I decided to make it more like a standard foiling board. So I rearrange all of the mast here, and I also need to make it a lot narrower as mine's too wide, which is causing a lot of the drag. And I also weld a horizontal body for it to move the foil in front of the mast to avoid the intersecting drag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to 3D print a profile that will go across the whole lot. Fresh off the 3D printer, I've got my hydrodynamic profile here. Pretty good. I can just hammer this in a little bit to fit, and I can probably pour some epoxy down the gap and that will hold it all together. Going to do a bit of work on the front foil now. The actual foil itself is pretty good. I'm going to leave it how it is for now, but I need to change how it's set up. Doesn't really work because once it gets foiling, the foil just flicks back the other way, so it needs to be braced both directions. So I think I'll mount this pipe here, make some sort of adjustable rail that connects to it. So here's my new front foil adjustment system. There's a bunch of holes drilled in this pole here, and I can just slide it to whatever angle I desire, and then fold it up out of the way when I am driving. Pretty cool, eh? My plan is to 3D print the foils out of PETG and use a gyroidal infill, and then I can pour polyester resin inside, as polyester resin joins really well to PETG, and make a nice rigid foil. Well, that was the plan anyway.
Perfect.
There we go. Now I just got to make it strong and fix it to this aluminium tube here. I've got some holes in the bottom. Got my resin infused PETG hydrofoil here. I mean, it's got a bit of leakage and stuff, but I realized that I printed the ends with the wrong infill. I printed it with grid infill. So I'm going to snap it to see what it looks like on the inside. This side is the gyroid infill, but it didn't fill up. The joint is super weak. Oh yeah. That is not too bad. Still cavities, but it's chocker full of resin. It's not filled up all the way. It was very strong around this area, so that's looking good. I decided to give up on this idea of filling them up with resin and instead just go for the tried and true method of laying fiberglass over top of them. This idea might work for other setups, but I just couldn't see how I was going to get the resin all the way through it. So what I'm going to do now is just put some fiberglass cloth over it. I didn't want to do this because I hate doing fiberglass, but don't really have a choice, do I? Okay, we've got that fiberglassing dried now. I sound a bit weird because I've got a mask on. There's still fiberglass particles floating around, but a few air bubbles in that, which I have ground out on this foil, and I'm going to do another coat. Got a bit of delamination going on here too, so I've got to sort that out. Got all my mast covers made from the 3D printer. Now I need to put all these on. How am I going to do that? For the tail here, all I've done is weld on a piece of flat aluminium plates, 2mm thick, so hopefully I can just bend this with my hands if I need to change the angle a little bit. Got that all sanded pretty smooth now, quite happy with it actually. I didn't think it would come out this good. Try and do like a smoothing coat over top of the whole thing. So much manual labour and fiberglassing, I've been really trying to avoid doing this, but it seems to be no other way. Another problem I've been having is this little motor doesn't quite have enough power, so why not have two motors? That was the raw footage. Now for a bit of a breakdown on what was happening. You can see in this shot the rear foils are starting to lift up and they're making the whole thing nosedive. So I've got my weight too far forward and too much weight on the front foil. And as I move my weight back, away it comes, up onto the foils. So this was pretty exciting, but it tipped over to the side a lot. Then it started falling again here until I had a problem with the motor. It started making some weird noises and vibrating really badly, and then the muffler fell off.
The muffler snapped off.
So I thought this was my cue to get out of here. I didn't even bring a paddle this time, so I really needed to be able to run it back to the boat ramp to get away. So luckily I decided to pack up and take it back. One of the motors was shaking really badly, so I was basically holding it in place, trying to stop the vibrations as I made it back. I know what you guys are thinking. How did you even join these two motors together in the first place? Big thanks to the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. I used PCBWay's CNC machining service to make these nice little parts here. And trying it on the motor, it keyed in perfectly to the flywheel, and then the nut holds it down, and I even sized the hole so my socket would just fit inside, giving me the maximum amount of thickness I could get. Obviously PCBWay does more than just CNC machining. They make PCBs, they do laser cutting, they do folding, they do 3D printing. So it's as simple as uploading your file, and you can even go to a 3D view to make sure it's what you want, and then you can go through, select your quantity, and it will give you a bit of a quote there and then and there. You just go through and select all the different options, making sure you get exactly what you want. Oh, how good is this?
Okay, so what happened with the motor is the nuts worked themselves loose because I don't have any washers on them. I didn't have any at the time. But you know, the conditions were perfect, so I had to go give it a try anyway. All the bolts come out of the coupling and the motor was just shaking around like crazy, so that was bad, but I can fix all that stuff.
Good news is these foils didn't break, despite them just being 3D printed with one layer of fiberglass over top.
Time to fix this exhaust pipe, weld this back on. Lucky it didn't go into the sea. Alright, finish welding that back on. Let's get that back on. That was a pain to weld.
Another thing I need to do is rebalance the longtail.
So I can do that by moving this pivot point back further. That'll put more load on the tail. At the moment it's like pretty much neutrally balanced. There we go, I've adjustified the fulcrum of the seesaw, so it should be a little bit more heavy on the tail now, keeping the tail in the water. It is a surface drive, but if you've got it too light, it just skates across the water really easily. It's hard to control. Another problem is this. We've got a bit of side-to-side rocky motion, which is not helping the control factor, you see. So this longtail kit's made in Thailand, but for the American market, so it's got a bunch of weird imperial sizes on everything. So 19 mils pretty close. I'm going to bore a hole in this plate and put one of those top and bottom. Okay, the motor's working now. I had to end up timing them together just because of the way it went together. I couldn't twist the coupling because it's been galled up from when it slipped, but it'll be alright. Another problem I want to tackle is stability. So once it gets up, it's a bit hard to see on the video, it gets a bit side to side, unstable, and also front to back, and I have to sit quite far back. So if I move this foil to the very front here and tip it backwards, that should fix that. Even though I'm only idling here, the front's already starting to lift, which is making me pretty happy. I can see the foil in front of me working well. I only need to increase the throttle a little bit for the rear foils to start working and lifting the boat up. Unfortunately, it lifts it all crooked, and I try moving my weight around to try and stabilize it, but every time it goes up, it goes a little bit crooked. And I also notice the front foil is sliding along on the front bar off to one side, which isn't helping. And a few times I got pretty steep and it felt like I was going to tip over, but on the camera it doesn't look like that. And then eventually the front foil link bar broke and it came crashing down. So after coming to shore to inspect what had gone wrong, I decided I'd pack up and have a go at just testing the motor just to make sure it's reliable now. I'm actually going to do a full video on this motor and show you how I set it all up and got it working properly. I only ended up getting to about a third throttle before water was spraying from the hull so bad that it was almost going into the intake, so I had to slow down. So this motor is way too much for this boat, but it's really good for trying to get it up on the foils. Here's the piece that broke here. It's not very thick infill, but it mostly broke because of the angle of this. This is free to slide side to side. I knew this was going to be an issue, but I thought I'd be alright for one test, but obviously it wasn't. So I need to print some little collars to put either side of that. And I'll reprint this again, but I'll print it quite a bit thicker, I think. Another obvious problem is the stability issues. I mean, the motor's working pretty good now. Pretty happy with that. So one idea is mount the foils further out, like so.
It is also a pain to put them in these things every time. Another good way would be have it to pivot like that, and I could even angle it like that a little bit so that it self-corrects easier. People commented in the last video about the long tail, because as you get up on the foil and you point it more like that, you're getting an angle which is driving the front down, which is an issue, but it's not really that bad because the foils are far apart and levelness front to back's not really an issue now. I do have an issue with side to side. So if I've got the long tail on an angle like that and we're up on foils, it's trying to twist the whole boat over. Sort of doing the opposite of banking it into the turn. Make sure you leave a comment about what you think I should do, and if anyone in New Zealand has got a like 8 horsepower 2-stroke long shaft, let me know. See you in the next one.